Welcome to another episode of Automotive Insight. Today's vehicle is a 2013 Ford Explorer 3.5 liter. Customer states the check charging system and the red battery light is on. I have diagnosed this as a faulty alternator. This is an intermittent problem. Let's get into it. Okay, so it did have one code in the PCM for generator fill terminal circuit low for the alternator. It is currently working. I went under the hood and I made sure it was plugged in well, shook the harness. Not seeing any wiring issues. Right now we ain't changed anything yet, but the voltage desired and the battery voltage is really close. That's good enough. What will happen? We'll increase it. That's working. We'll go the other way. So with this code in there, and I did get to duplicate it one time. You started up and the alternator wasn't working until you revved it up, and then it worked from there. So I'm going to say the alternator is faulty and we're going to replace it. Took the prop rod out. I used a pry bar just because this is kind of right where we're working. So I removed the prop rod. Cap extension. On the inside of is a little tab. You can pick it up and then you can twist that out. That just helps, gives you a little extra room. Next, going to remove the side engine mount here. There's three 18mm bolts. We loosen our mount, and I've got a block of wood on a jack. I've jacked the engine up a little bit. So we're going to use a 3/8 adapter for our serpentine belt tool. Okay, we'll move our B plus terminal. It's a 13mm. There's a AC line bracket. It's a 10mm bolt. We're going to remove that. This is the upper alternator bolt. It is a 15mm. Okay, we're going to work on removing the lower alternator bolt. It is a 15mm. Alright, it's the lower alternator bolt. Okay, alternator should be loose. Let's see if we can pry it out. Alright, so we pried our alternator loose. Let's see if we can push it forward. There we go. Off the stud. Okay, using a 7mm socket, we're going to remove the upper alternator stud. So I put a strap on the lower part of the mount and on the upper strut brace, and I was able to pull the engine back a little bit to help kind of give a little bit more room. But we're going to just dismount the compressor. We're not discharging the AC, we're not breaking any lines loose, but we're going to remove the compressor and see if we can just shove it to the side. We're going to disconnect the compressor. We'll disconnect the electrical connector. And there's a harness clip on the upper stud. The lower one is a bolt and a stud. They're 13mm. It's a 13mm nut, and the upper bolts are 13mm as well. We'll go ahead and remove the stud. It is a 5mm. So we got a new Motorcraft alternator from Ford. I went ahead and made sure I pushed the tab in, but now we'll go back in with it. I put the upper stud in, that way we can hang the alternator and it'd be easier to get the lower bolt installed. Now we gotta pull the engine back forward a little bit to get our lower bolt in there. So I've got the lower alternator bolt tight. We'll go ahead and put our compressor back in place. Okay, we'll go ahead and install our upper alternator nut. Reroute the harness. We'll plug in the alternator and we'll also plug in our AC compressor. We'll install our B+ terminal. We'll put our AC line bracket back in place. We'll tighten down our engine mount. Okay, we'll put our engine cover back on. We'll reconnect our battery. So I removed the prop rod. We'll put that back in place. Alright, 14.5. That's good, and that'll probably come down after it runs for a little bit. Well, that wraps up the alternator. This job is not the easiest to do. I would say a second hand, it would be useful. I did do it by myself. This is the 175 amp alternator. They do have higher amperage, 200, and I even think one more higher than that, probably for the police models. That keep in mind that those alternators are bigger. The method we used on this one is, it might not come out the same way, but I'm not sure what the service manual calls for. This is how I did it. Labor does call for about 2.5 hours, and I found prices from $300 to $500 for this alternator. Anyway, that wraps us up. I may not have all your torque specs. Hopefully I had some. That being said, I'll see you on the next one.
Said I'll pick you up at 8. You probably won't be awake. Call yourself an Uber, babe. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait.
Well, that's not what I meant to do.